Hi, everyone. My name is Sandy Kane. I'd say good morning or afternoon or evening, kind of depends on where you are in the world. Um, I'm the CEO of Real Sourcing Network, and I want to welcome you to our webinar. We're glad to have all of you with us today. The topic of this webinar is procuring marketing technologies, and we're delighted to have three seasoned procurement executives with us today who are going to share their thoughts and experience about this important topic. I'll introduce our panel in just a minute. Before we get started, however, I just want to cover a few housekeeping ideas. First, a brief introduction to Real Sourcing Network, or RSN. We provide an e-sourcing software solution for printed materials and a wide range of other marketing services, including graphic design, copywriting, web design, video production, mailing services, etc. Over the last few years, we've seen many of the procurement professionals we work with become more and more involved in procuring marketing technology applications. So this topic is an important one for us. Second, we'd love to get questions from you during the course of the webinar, and you can submit your questions by writing in on your screen, and we'll see them and be able to answer them before the end of the presentation. And lastly, you should know that we are recording this webinar, so that we'll be sending you a link to the recording within the next few days. So you don't need to take copious notes. You can just enjoy yourselves and watch and listen. So with that, let me introduce my panel. I'm not sure that's me on the left. Barry has not yet made it on. Hopefully, before we get to the panel part of the discussion, he will. But Barry is the Senior Director of Category Management Americas at AstraZeneca. And I'll say thanks to Barry for being on the panel when he actually is. Next is Phil Yee. He is a Senior Sourcing Manager at New Relic. Phil, thanks so much for being with us. Can you spend a minute and just tell the folks your background?
Yes, my name is Phil Yee. I'm a Senior Manager of Sourcing and Procurement at New Relic. New Relic is a software as a service company that with its latest products called New Relic One, which is industry's largest and most comprehensive cloud-based observability platform. So I have been in the strategic sourcing line of business for the last 10 years, and especially in the last 6 to 7 years, I've been in the IT sourcing. Right now, at the New Relic, I expand my exposure to marketing and the sales categories. So I think the technology and the marketing are a great combination of both ends of the world. So I'm very excited about in the marketing sourcing.
Great, thanks, Phil. And finally, we have Dana Small with us. Dana is Senior Category Manager at BioMarin Pharmaceutical. Dana, can you spend a minute on your background?
Sure. My name is Dana Small. I work at BioMarin Pharmaceutical, which is a pharmaceutical that has ultra rare disease states. So if you haven't heard of us, typically it's a good thing. As far as my background, I've got at least 10 plus years in strategic sourcing and probably 15 years finance driven. And the majority of that time, almost all of it has been supporting the sales and marketing function, along with other areas of indirect sourcing like professional services.
Thanks, Dana.
You're welcome.
So there's two main parts to our program today. First is to set the stage for our panel discussion. I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about the current landscape of marketing technology. One of the defining characteristics of marketing in the 21st century is a deep reliance on technology. Some industry commentators have gone so far as to say that today, marketing technology is marketing. I think that goes a little too far, but there isn't any doubt that having the right technology tools has become essential to successful marketing. Then after my introduction, our panel of procurement experts will share their insights and experiences about the role that procurement can play and should play in the process of acquiring marketing technology solutions. We will discuss when procurement should get involved in the acquisition process, what criteria are most important when evaluating a solution, and several other issues. So with that, let's get started. I suspect that all of us are well aware that marketing has become increasingly dependent on technology over the past few years, and that marketers now have access to a lot of technology tools and applications. But unless you work in marketing technology space every day, it's easy to underestimate just how large that Martech universe has become. In a survey report that was published last fall, WARC and BDO estimated that total spending on marketing technologies in North America and the UK reached $66 billion last year, up from 52 in 2018 and 34 the year before. And if you do the math, these estimates indicate that the total spending on Martech in the UK and North America grew by 53% between 2017 and 18, and another 26% from 2018 to last year. In this report, they stated that if the Martech spending in North America and the UK are typical of other key markets around the world, they estimate that the total global spending on marketing technologies last year was about $121 billion. It's very clear that the marketing technology landscape is now very crowded. This graphic, which by the way I recognize no one can actually read, is the 2019 version of Scott Brinker's famous or infamous representation of the marketing technology landscape. For those of you who are not familiar with Scott, he's Vice President Platform Ecosystem at HubSpot, but he is probably better known as the author of the Chief Martech blog, and he may be best known for creating this graphic of the marketing technology landscape. He's been publishing these graphics annually for the past several years. This one shows that there are now 7,040 distinct technology solutions in the marketing technology universe. As impressive as the size of the marketing technology landscape is, the rate of growth is even more impressive. This chart shows the number of marketing technology solutions that have appeared in all of Scott's marketing technology landscape graphics. As this chart clearly shows, the number of solutions started growing at an explosive rate around 2012, and that growth has continued through 2018, slowing a little bit in 2019, but still substantial. I suspect that when he publishes his 2020 graphic in 2 or 3 months, Scott will show that the universe of Martech solutions is still growing. Now let's talk about it from a monetary standpoint. We can also see how important technology has become in marketing by looking at how much companies and their marketers are spending on these tools. 2 surveys from last year provide pretty compelling evidence that marketing and business leaders see technology as essential for effective marketing. In Gartner's 2019-20 CMO Spend Survey, respondents from companies in North America and the UK said that they were spending 26% of their total marketing budget on technology. To put this in perspective, their study found that on average, marketers are spending as much on technology as they are on media, and more than they're spending with agencies. 26% on technology versus 22% on agencies. The survey by WARC and BDO that I referenced before produced similar results. It found that on average, companies in North America and the UK devoted 26% of their marketing budget to technology last year, up from 23% the year before. North American companies are investing even more. Survey respondents from those companies said that they spent 30% of their marketing budget on technology in 2019. And in the study, respondents said that they expect to see at least another 10 to 15% increase this year. While it's interesting to see high-level data about the number of technology solutions in the universe and the overall size of the Martech industry, what matters more to business and marketing leaders is the real-world impact of marketing technology at the individual company level. Some of the questions that we've heard frequently are, how many solutions do companies really use? Does the implementation of technology actually improve marketing performance? And what are the main challenges associated with the use of these technologies? A 2019 survey by the Harris Poll provided several important insights on these issues. This was a survey of 454 marketing and customer experience leaders and managers in the US, Canada, and the UK. On the one hand, this survey confirmed that most companies are making extensive use of marketing technology. On average, the survey respondents said that their company is using 10 different customer engagement applications. Of those respondents who provided a number, 20% said that their company is currently using more than 20 technology applications. However, the survey also found that more isn't necessarily better when it comes to technology for marketing. For example, of those respondents who are currently using more than 10 applications, 76%, 3/4, said that the number of tech applications makes it harder to provide a seamless customer experience. And 65% said that technology has actually made it harder for them to effectively engage with customers. When the survey participants were asked about the specific challenges associated with their current technology applications, the top 2 challenges were related to integration. 29% said that integrations were costly and labor-intensive to manage, and 28% pointed to a lack of data integration among applications. Despite these challenges, surveys say that it's likely that the number of marketing technologies used by companies will continue to grow. 21% of the respondents said that they expect that the number of Martech applications used by their company will increase over the coming year, and 39% expect the number to increase over the next 5 years. Sometimes a picture can be worth 1,000 words when it comes to understanding just how much technology has permeated the practice of marketing. What you're seeing here is an illustration of the marketing technology stack used by Juniper Networks. Juniper Networks was one of the 2019 winners of a Stacky Award. The Stacky Awards are the brainchild of Scott Brinker, who I mentioned before, who's also the program chair for the Martech conferences that are held twice each year. A few years ago, Scott began inviting companies to submit illustrations of their marketing technology stack in a friendly competition. The 5 best were awarded Stackies at one of the Martech conferences each year. If you count the number of Martech applications shown in this illustration, you'll find that Juniper Networks was using, believe it or not, 51 Martech applications in 2019. Now, it's probably true that Juniper Networks is not an average company when it comes to the use of these technologies. But as we've seen, there are many companies that are using more than 20. The main point of this introduction to the subject is that technology now impacts virtually every aspect of marketing. So it's essential that companies acquire and implement the right technology tools. And because the marketing technology landscape is constantly evolving, the job of evaluating and acquiring Martech never really ends. One recent survey found that 83% of companies replace at least one marketing software application every year. Just as important, a growing number of agencies, printing companies, and other service providers, like RSN, are combining technological capabilities with traditional services in order to offer more comprehensive solutions. So even when a company isn't acquiring a marketing technology application, there's often a need to evaluate a technology component of a broader solution. The bottom line is, in today's marketing environment, companies need sound processes for sourcing marketing technologies, and this is where procurement can play an important role. So let's get to the panel. First, let me find out whether or not Barry was able to join us. Barry, are you online?
I am online, Sandy. Thank you, and apologies for the technical difficulties on my end.
Hey, not everybody can be a perfect technical expert, Barry, but we appreciate you being on. Okay, so let's get started with the panel. I'm going to have a few questions on each one of these charts for the panel. Let's start with the first one. And since you came late, Barry, we'll let you get started first, okay?
All
How
right.
long has your team been involved in sourcing Martech solutions?
So short answer is probably for the past 7 years, 5 to 7 years, as a standard process in terms of when there is a need from the business that involves a Martech solution. It's just part of what they do, right? Whether it's a business partner or a category manager that is involved, the business knows just to get us involved.
And what kinds of marketing technologies has your team been involved with?
So it runs the spectrum of categories, anything from print solutions all the way up to media technology stacks, whether it's an Adobe stack or any other types of technology that would support any sort of multi-channel marketing strategies. All the way to, and technology can be defined differently, right? It's technology solutions that are point solutions or more programmatic solutions or enterprise solutions. So it really runs all sorts of different categories and needs. One specific one is, if you're thinking about, and I'm in the healthcare space, if you're thinking about physician, how to track physician usage and engagement. There's specialty software solutions out there that we've gotten involved with to help put in place.
And how big a piece of the Martech spending pie would you say your team is involved with?
I would say it's probably upwards of 80% to
Wow.
90%, only because of that is, like I said, for the past 5 to 7 years, it's just slowly been part of the natural process of building relationships, building credibility, most importantly, building that supply market knowledge that the stakeholders come to us and they know that we can usually help them, right? If we can't help them immediately, we'll find an answer. But it's a large percentage that we're involved with.
Great.
And in conjunction, I should say, IT is involved as well.
When I introduced the panel, Barry, I told them, where you are currently and what you're doing, but you didn't get a chance to tell them a little bit about your background. If you would do that before I get back to Dana and Phil.
Sure, I'll just give the super high level. So Barry Call has been in.
We only have an hour, Barry.
So my background is really on the direct side. Most of my career has been in procurement, focusing throughout on the marketing or commercial spend, as I call it. I've spent time in industry at AstraZeneca, a lot of time at Accenture, where I worked with multinational and emerging healthcare companies, whether it's pharma, biotech, or medical devices, doing technology implementations, transformations. Most recently, I moved back to AstraZeneca, but just before that, I was with Novo Nordisk, running their marketing portfolio of categories on a global basis.
Great, thanks so much. Phil, Dana, do you have any comments you'd like to make on these questions that are on the screen?
I can make a couple of comments.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is Phil. So I am actually with a technology company. So we have only 15 years of history, from founders and his peers, and founded this company. I think it started with, less than 5 or 6 people, and to today we grow up to 2,000 employees. So it is quite different from maybe from other more mature companies. So I joined New Relic probably 2 years ago. At that time, there was no marketing procurement, so we're not even talking about the Martech sourcing. So what I'm trying to say is that in our company, sourcing's involvement in the Martech is probably less than 2 years. But we see a drastic understanding of our roles. Really depends on how we present the values to the marketing teams, how we can help them to identify the right solutions for them. So I would say that in the last 2 years, we see a tremendous, progression about from nobody knows about Martech sourcing to people are coming to our sourcing teams to looking for help.
Great. Dana, comments?
Yeah, mine role is similar to Barry's, but I've been with BioMarin a little bit less. But I'd say we definitely have less of the technologies covered as far as sourcing goes. So if he's at 80 or 90%, I'd say between myself and a colleague who does some of the IT stuff is probably closer to maybe 40%. Or 50% that's covered. There's a lot of, I think, historical pieces already in play that we just haven't looked at sourcing yet. So,
okay. Moving on. These questions kind of talk a little bit about process and how procurement gets involved. So, Barry, let me ask this. Typically, when does your team get involved? At the very beginning when they're defining the idea, when solutions are identified, after it's been identified, how does it work?
Well, ideally, we want to get involved in the developing of the need up front. But I would say it's a very mixed bag. To put a percentage on it, I would say we're probably involved in the upfront maybe 60% of the time. Because for a few reasons. One, behavioral change within the stakeholder group. Two, the nature of marketing, the nature of technology solutions. The need arises very fast, and the speed at which the business needs to capture that opportunity in the marketplace is very slim most times. But that's an excuse that they give us a lot. Really, it's a matter of developing those relationships up front so that they do trust us, they understand our credibility. So it's a mixed bag, but I don't want to paint the stakeholder groups that I've been involved with. And I think I'll make a generalization. It's not that there's any negative intent. It's a matter of education and a matter of just being able to be at the right place at the right time, I think.
Let me ask a little follow-up, Barry, to this. When you said 60%. Do you think that's unusual? That it's that? I would have guessed it would have been lower, that 60%, that you would get involved, at the definition stage.
Yeah, I think it's different for every organization. As my fellow panelists, we have different experiences, different maturity levels, different organizations with different mandates. So I think it does vary across any organization. I do think that's probably could be a little high, and again, that 60%, I was just using that as a marker. It very much depends on our ability to understand the plan, if you will, from whether it's marketing or IT at the outset, and just how well they're able to plan and give some foresight into what their needs are, because of the nature of, I think, business in general these days. Things move very, very fast, and we can't get in front of every opportunity, for sure.
Dana and Phil, what are your thoughts on where you guys get involved, and what do you have a number similar to the 60% that Barry just mentioned?
This is Dana. We definitely don't have numbers similar to the 60%. I'd say it's much lower, maybe 20 or 30%. And we do, because we don't have an organization that you have to go through us, where it's specified. It's based on building relationships. So I definitely say it's a lot lower, and we can be brought in sometimes once we have the established relationships extremely early in the process, but there's also times where they've already picked a solution and they just want you to help negotiate, right? So it kind of runs the spectrum, but because we don't have a mandate in place.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty much same here. So if we're talking about the percentage, I would say after a solution has been identified, then I would say probably 80 to 90% of the requests coming to our procurement team. But if we're talking about at the at the stage of need requirements development, and probably less than 20%.
Okay. Dana, do
And
you
Dana-
guys, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was going to comment, Dana, you brought up a huge point in that it's whether there's a mandate or a cultural norm to get procurement involved first. And I think that goes back to just the maturity of the organization and the nature, some companies are driven by finance, others by legal, others, by other areas. So the culture absolutely affects our ability to get involved early.
Okay. Dana, do you guys use a formal RFP process, and what's the most important criteria you use when evaluating these solutions?
So we do have a formal RFP process, but because there is no mandate, I personally will use discretion involved, right? So if it makes sense to go through a very rigid process, then I'll force a business to do so. But if it seems like, we're in dire need to get something just put in place, a lot of times we will do a quicker RFQ or something of that sort. As far as the most important criteria when evaluating new Martech, a lot of times our requirements are vetted through IT, and they have probably a higher list of priorities that have to have as far as integrations and things of that sort. So I'd say as a procurement person, I a lot of times will leverage the IT person or my IT sourcing person to understand which integrations, which requirements really are key, knowing that my specialty is more on the sales and commercial side than it is on the IT requirement side.
Okay. And the last thing on this chart, subject of ROI, my understanding is that many companies don't use an ROI assessment process to evaluate these kind of solutions. Is that true with the three of you?
I think that's true, at least for my company. But if I can, add a little bit more points to the second question. So in terms of the RFP, then of course we don't have a mandate as here. But sometimes when business they understand the value of RFP, they do, ask our procurement's help to run the RFP. And in terms of what criteria we're looking at, of course, first is the new solutions, the new suppliers should, meet our business need. There's no doubt about that. And we also want to look at if the new solutions are complementary to our other existing technologies. And of course, the other very critical part we are looking at is the data privacy compliance, pretty much like GDPR and the latest CCPA, which is California Consumer Privacy Act, right? And of course, the traditional commercial aspects like price and T's and C's of the contract.
Okay. Okay, moving along. Whoops. There we go. As I talked about in my introduction, the number of applications has exploded dramatically in a lot of companies, and many companies greatly underestimate the number of apps that their people are actually using. Is there somebody in your company responsible for maintaining kind of a system of record of the Martech applications that are currently used? Barry?
There is, but it sits in the marketing operations team, so in the commercial operations team. And the term system of record, they don't they haven't used that particular term, but there is a wholly owned, it's kind of like a shadow IT organization within commercial operations, because that the Martech requirements have grown so much that they're basically operating on their own from the traditional IT support group.
Does the procurement team get involved in evaluating how an application is doing?
From a contractual perspective and SLA perspective, yes. But from a day-to-day, if you're looking at the operational KPIs such as uptime and performance of that nature, no, we don't get involved. We do, however, make sure that we understand what those requirements are and kind of how that helps or hurts the business if they're not running, if their performance isn't there. But we don't get involved with at that level. That's more the as I mentioned, the kind of the IT, commercial operations IT team. But where it does tie back to is during any quarterly or monthly supplier performance reviews, then we'll of course want to have that information beforehand so that we understand what areas we need to drive as from a performance perspective, and they will be involved in those discussions as necessary as well.
With that in mind, to what extent does your team get involved in renewal of these applications?
Only when we get the alert from our friendly Ariba platform saying your contract is up in 90 days. That's when we get involved to either renew the agreement, or if we need to take it out to RFP or some sort of competitive environment, then we'll of course know that ahead of time. That's part of our planning process. But only when the agreement needs to be renewed.
Okay. Dana, is there somebody at your firm that's maintains some kind of system of record of what's being used?
So because I'm in pharmaceuticals, I would pretty much mirror everything that Barry has said as far as having like a digital community within commercial ops group, and then having IT sitting in with them, going through and assessing, all of our systems and applications and, KPIs, just as Barry has mentioned.
Okay. Phil, anything to add on that?
In my personal opinion is that I think the procurement / sourcing team should maintain the system of the records. But of course, sometimes businesses, they prefer to have their own system, which is okay. But I think that's really depends on the two departments, two functions to really collaborate closely to make sure the renewals or whatever the business need are attained. And also in terms of what roles that we play during the SaaS renewal, I think in addition to the transactional actions, which pretty much like 90 days, we should just starting to discuss about the renewal, we would also provide advice to our marketing team, say, have you checked your true usage? Have you plan or forecast the growth in the next year, so that we can build the best deals into the renewal deal. And sometimes if we need to purchase a new technologies from the same company, then we can figure out a way to combine these two actions together to achieve the best results for the business.
Great, thank you. In terms of the procurement professionals on the team, what knowledge and skills need to be acquired or developed in order to be able to be effectively involved in sourcing, marketing technology? From that standpoint, Dana, your thoughts?
Yeah, so as somebody with probably 10 plus years in commercial and sales, I think being able to leverage your counterparts in either IT procurement or within the organization of IT, a lot of times I won't have that in-depth knowledge about an actual system. So I rely heavily on my partner to be able to support me in doing so. And so if you can learn about that during the process, I think that's a key thing to do for your career, because it also expands you to be able to do it in the future, right, for sourcing more IT products.
All right, the last two questions on this chart that I'd like you to address, Dana, is, first, is there somebody in the marketing department responsible for, these operations and their decision process? And do you guys, from a procurement standpoint, share the responsibility, or is it clearly theirs, or how does it work? And to what extent is IT involved?
Yeah, so I would say we have like the digital community that's completely focused on all the technology, websites, et cetera, any Martech solution. We do, I would say, again, it's not mandated, so it's built on these relationships. And once we've made, good headway with the people in the digital community. They know who we are, and they will come ahead of time and actually ask us to, run the event and help them find new solutions or whatever is needed. IT actually does play a really big part in these RFP processes. So I think part of the reason why the digital community will come to us is so that we're able to act as a third party and shepherd everybody through all the process and get, IT's involvement and their portion of requirements for the solution for any type of solution that we choose for Martech.
Okay. Phil, you want to comment on these points on the chart?
Yeah, I think this is a very interesting topic here. So, and personally, I feel that as a procurement person, we should really develop an IT sourcing skill set first, and then of course we have to learn the marketing's categories, the knowledge, and as well as the practice there, right? And well, from my past couple of years of observance, I don't think IT department play a lot of the decisive role in Martech technologies, in Martech sourcing. I think the reason is that IT, they're pretty much focused on technologies, specifically like IT security, integrations, and provide technology enablement. But they're pretty much removed, or a little bit far removed from the marketing side. So then if they don't have the knowledge of marketing, then it's difficult for them to make influence. So I think for the sourcing professionals in the Martech space, we sort of benefit from the both sides of the world. We know the IT sourcing, the technology. We also know the marketing. So I think as a professional, we should be, to learn both sides of the world.
Barry, you have anything you want to add to this?
Yeah, I think both from Dana and Phil, excellent points. The only thing I could add at this is that I would recommend, and this is what I've done and my teams do, is think like the marketer, right? Think like what their business problems they're trying to solve, and really dive deep into the actual technology. So understand what the technology is, how it works, what it does, what it can't do, and ultimately how it helps answer the business problem. So it's just dive deep into the subject matter so that you understand it. What that does builds credibility all around and really supercharges your negotiation plan, so that when you are negotiating, you have more data points, you have more insight, you have more knowledge ultimately to negotiate the best contract.
Okay. And finally, tips for the audience. And this is the advice and counsel chart. What I'd like to have each of the three of you do is just talk about what advice you would have for sourcing professionals who would like to have procurement play a larger role in marketing technology spending, decisions. And as a part of that, what should they avoid? What are the critical steps to take? And any other suggestions you may have. Barry, you go first.
Okay, thank you, Sandy. I think just continuing on my last comment, the other piece of advice, the second piece of advice I would give is understand the entire ecosystem of what's happening within the marketing landscape, both from a technology perspective, but also from whether it's media or advertising, what have you. Just understand how this Martech plays into the greater landscape of what your organization is trying to affect. And again, that way you'll have a better understanding of where you need to drive the different either contractual negotiations or business outcomes.
Dana?
Yeah, so Barry made some great points. I'll just kind of add to those. I would definitely say when you're working with sales and marketing and trying to source Martech solutions, even though it's got this IT aspect, to Barry's point, you really have to understand what the sales and marketing team is trying to achieve with the implementation and understand what the software can and can't do. And so coming from like a non-mandated environment, if you can really be a subject matter expert and have that background and understanding, I think it makes the process so much easier. I think a major pitfall of a lot of people is that our procurement professionals is that they don't spend the time to really understand the solution and why they're actively looking for it. And so if you can, take the time and do some research, it's a huge win for the marketers to know that you are also, understanding of what they're trying to achieve, what their goals are in purchasing that solution.
Okay, Phil?
Yeah, I agree completely with Dana and Barry. One thing I want to add to here is that when we approach to marketing teams, we try to, speak their language versus use our procurement specific jargons. For example, in marketing, they would like to talking about grow, expand, increase. However, procurement, sometimes we are focused on cut, reduce, and consolidate, right? So we try to say, well, how we can grow your business by doing this and that. And also, we need to form alliance with marketing teams, with CMOs, reach out to the senior leadership, make friends in the marketing teams. And sometimes we have to be a little bit flexible and be creative in finding the solutions. So that's my advice.
Great. That's my last chart. So I just want to take the opportunity first, thank everybody for attending. We appreciate your interest. We hope you found it worthwhile. And secondly, of course, I want to thank Dana and Phil and Barry for their participation. Your insights were terrific. And we hope you'll join us again for the next one of these webinars. Again, thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.